morning, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Monday Morning Learning Podcast. And as usual, we have a very special guest this episode, Ajit Kamath, a very close friend and a CPF master. In fact, the first CPF master in India. And CPF, for those who don't know, stands for Certified Professional Facilitator. So Ajit has been in the field of lecturing, training, facilitation since 93.
Yeah,
And he has a plethora of certifications in coaching, NLP, cultural detective. That's an interesting one. Psychodrama. He's also certified with global organizations like Hemsley Fraser, Development Global International, Mind Gym. But I know Ajit in another avatar. As an educator, he teaches facilitation at TIS, which is Tata Institute of Social Sciences, for the executive PG program and the MAOD program, organizational development. And Ajit also has been a visiting faculty at Wellinger Institute of Management Studies, SP Jain, among other management institutes and business schools. But even beyond that, I think Ajit is a huge learner. So facilitator, educator. But that's one side of him which became even more prominent during the COVID times when he shifted gears very quickly and adapted to virtual online training, not only learning himself, but teaching a lot of people. And, he tells that he's trained close to 200 independent trainers in being able to virtually facilitate sessions and about 800 corporate trainers. So, I mean, that's an amazing number, Ajit. So welcome aboard, Ajit. How are you doing today?
Oh, good. I'm doing well. Thank you for the opportunity, Mani, and that's so nice. Um, yep.
Great. So, I'm going to start right at where you talked about in your intro, you like making a difference, and you say you're mad in that sense. Uh,
True, true.
so, I'm going to ask something about your, what got you here. You have a background in law, you have done public speaking, you have been in theater, drama, and I don't know what else you have done. So, what
Yeah.
influenced you to become a facilitator?
Good question. But it's. I believe in this whole thing that's Steve Jobs used to talk about: connect the dots.
Hmm.
So I think I did a lot of things. I was possibly, if you ask me, jack of all trades, master of none. Whatever I was interested is what I learned. And I think I need to give that credit to my dad, who, in spite of not having studied beyond third standard and being a businessman, whenever I said that I want to learn this, or that, he never stopped me. He said, "Go ahead and learn." Okay, in spite of the fact that he knew that probably I will take care of his business, or internally wanted me to take care of his business, but he didn't stop me from learning. And if I look at this connect the dots, there are so many pieces that I did at certain points of time, which I did just because of a hobby, love, interest. And I think it's all coming together now when I look at facilitation. Because some people do look at facilitation as offering from the L&D side. I look at it very deeply from making people feel safe enough or easy enough to have a conversation, right? So I may, for making people have conversations and be open and speak, I may even use clay modeling, which I have learned many. I have used photography and made people open up. So I think these are all connect the dots. So everything that I have learned at certain points of time, so it be as a hobby, or like law was more like a interest in law that got me there, but it started. So if I look at some of the catalyst spaces that are there, when I was doing law, I was also teaching public speaking and presentation skills, public speaking
Yeah.
rather, for organization which was a NGO. And that's where I realized my love for standing up and
Mm.
having a conversation was very high. So from there, I moved into training, which became a natural progression because I was working at the British Council division during that phase, up and down a bit, and realized that in India, while you know corporate learning meant someone standing behind a podium and talking like a lecture or like a speaker. The change that what I noticed in the global space was that learning was more application oriented, more
Mm.
deeper, activity based. There was a lot of transitions, connections to what was done in the room and how would you use it back into your workplace.
Yeah.
So that's where my awareness became high, and that's how I moved into training and then later into facilitation.
Right. And I can, when you said connecting the dots and when you are describing all of it in terms of application-based learning and taking it back,
Hmm.
and I'm seeing a lot of connection when you talk about drama and theater because there's a live feedback and you're just in the moment, right? In a lot of
Right,
ways, and which
right.
probably resonates with what facilitation brings in a
True.
sense. So what does it mean to be a CPF master in terms of, the responsibility you carry, the expertise you bring in, the experiences you talk about?
I know this answer has many different layers. So, as a CPF master, from my perspective, I would say that it really doesn't bring anything. It's you only who is a facilitator. Um, you have evaluated yourself um, from a global community, that
Hmm.
whether what you're doing is really facilitation or training, because in IF, where the CPF gets given, IF stands for the International Association of Facilitators. Training and facilitation is 180 degrees,
Hmm.
while you will see interchangeably people use the word training and
Yeah.
facilitation, and I was also using it at a point of time. um, so first is I'll talk about how I got aware of facilitation. So 30 odd years I was back, I was into training. There was this client of mine who worked in Unilever. He was the HRBP partner of Unilever R&D team, and I was doing a lot of work for him, a lot of work for
Hmm.
his
Hmm.
team, and R&D teams are quite tough, so my sessions did lead to activities, engagement, debrief. So I was doing good work, but he wanted a specific facilitator for something that they wanted to do for a large group.
Hmm.
They were coming from different parts of the country. They were coming to India, and he was looking out for a facilitator. So naturally, because I even taught them facilitation skills at that point of time, which honestly now I don't see as process facilitation. It was more of
Okay.
training
Yeah.
and the fun that you can do with training. So he said he wants a facilitator, and I said, okay,
Hmm.
fine. You know that I'm a facilitator. I'll send it. He said, no, 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 Ajit. I want a facilitator. So he
Hmm.
repeated 2 3 times, and I said, hey, no, Jerry, why are you repeating? I have run some workshops for you. He said, no, what you have done is a training workshop, and you have done an amazing job. So I'm not doubting that, but we need a facilitator. Um, and he made me aware that uh, facilitation is something which is different from training, and that quest of wanting to know, because this whole comparison between people from abroad coming in for doing a session in India. They come by first class, they stay in 7-star hotels, and they go back and they're in charge for their travel. All that kind of irritates you, that you are competent here. Why is it that someone is bringing someone from US, or for that matter from Europe? He got them from US because he got a facilitator, and so he told me that no, 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 Ajit, facilitation, you need to find out more. There is a organization called International Association of Facilitators, and you need to find out more. So what happened was I got in touch, naturally email, got in touch with the director who was the regional director of Asia, who is an Indian, root wise, parents Indian. He's a Singaporean. But he came with the Indian name, and I thought, okay, fine, let me connect and find out. And he put me on to two or three other people who are similarly trying to understand facilitation and bring facilitation and IF to India. So I think
Mm.
that was the first thing I got involved. I went for a session in Pune. I was staying in Mumbai that time. I went for Pune, took three or four of my L&D friends, saw Prabhu Naidu, who was doing this session, who was the regional director, and I was like blown up. I said, okay, so here I'm a trainer. I'm such an accomplished trainer. I'm getting work, and when I saw facilitation, where it was all the power of the group and all that, it was like I woke up.
Yeah.
And then I became part of this group of people. We started something called Bangalore Facilitators. Initially, it was in Bangalore, so it was called Bangalore Facilitators Network. I became active. I was the only person in Mumbai, evangelized it, ran sessions, understood, ran sessions, made people aware of facilitation, process facilitation. And as a natural growth, I thought I need to be a CPF, because there was this
Mm.
certification in IF. And because I was doing facilitation for the community, as well as started doing it for my clients, I thought, let me test myself out, because
Mm.
here no one was telling at that point of time, I need a CPF only.
Yeah.
So it's not like there was a demand that I do a certification, because there's other bodies where you do it and people say, I need a certified so and so, and then only they will hire you. So there's no requirement. I just thought, am I really a facilitator? I'm saying I'm a facilitator. Am I really a facilitator? Let me assess myself.
Mm.
So I underwent the CPF, and when CPF is not basically, you don't have to attend any training program. It's your competency check. But it's a very robust process. You get involved for 3 months. There are stages. The first stage is your documentation. Your clients need to give the documentation. So that's what I did. So it took me
Mm.
about 6-7 years to prepare for it. And in 2014, I applied for my CPF. There was a conference happening in Singapore. So usually IF conferences and a CPF event gets tied up, 2 days before, because at that point of time the assessors also travel. Then they also participate in the do sessions and all that. So it leads to a lot of sharing and all that. It's a whole sharing community. So yeah, 2014, I went to Singapore. So I'd done my stage one, which is documentation. Interviews were done. There was a client assessor who had got involved, and then I had to demo. And yeah, I cleared it. So I became a CPF in 2014. The CPF master, the first Indian, as you rightly say. So you have to have practice of 8 years after you get your CPF. So two times renewal, as we
Okay.
call it.
Mm.
Earlier, it was 3 years renewal of your certification, but later on, it was changed to 4 years. So you need to have two sets of renewals, 8 years, and then when you renew it for the third time, if you feel you have been doing certain work, which has many other elements, even evangelizing,
Mm.
facilitation, and all that, you can apply for a CPF master. So uh, there were CPFs before me, but probably because of the 3 years, 4 years, and they may have not applied. Because if you feel you are not at the mastery level, then you don't apply for it. You can do
Mm.
your natural CPF recertification.
Right.
So I applied for it. I had two assessors interviewing me, grilling me. Again, I had to give a lot of documentation, all those things, which I mean, IF relies on documentation, interviews, demos. But for CPF Master, it was not a demo. It's basically an
Mm.
interview looking at what's the practice you're doing in facilitation. Do you still, get confused with training and facilitation? What have your
Yeah.
learnings been, and all that? And then I was, you know, kind of certified as a CPF master. So at that point of time, because no one was there in India, yeah, I am the first CPF
So
master.
there's always a first. Yeah.
Yeah, now we have about 3 or 4 people, because after
Okay.
me, those who had, they suddenly became probably aware and all that, and have applied. So we have more CPF
Yeah.
masters now.
Well, I like this, this point which came up twice, the difference between training and facilitation. And, I want to invite you to, if you can quickly share with us, what is the key thing which differentiates these two, right? If, for people who don't know yet.
Great. Maybe what I can also tell you is that there are other two methodologies which are used a lot. And if you understand that, then the perspective changes. What I'll do is I will just quickly share, if it's fine. I'll just
Yeah,
share.
please go ahead.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I've just asked you for sharing permission. Give me a moment, and let me share my secondary camera and just show you what I feel will work very well in
Sure.
this explanation. I just change the lights. Is it clear?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. Go ahead.
So let me attempt to show you, because this is a model I've been using, and it's adapted model or inspired model from the Singapore Facilitators Network.
Hmm.
So the way I see it is, if this is, one second, let me first draw it. Okay. So if you look at our world, we carry content with us, right? We carry a
Hmm.
content with us for explanation. So the content is knowledge, what you're teaching in the room and all that. And on the exactly opposite side is what we call as process. And I'll give an alternate word, because sometimes process becomes very, even in many companies and all that, process is a often used word, so there's a little
Yeah. Could
confusion. So
connote
in,
to operational aspect. Yeah,
yeah,
sometimes. Yeah.
so here let's call it content, and let's say a process which is engagement. This on this side is the what,
Hmm.
and this is the how.
Hmm.
Okay, so what and how. Now, if I am extremely on the left and I'm using a red here and drawing it, so let's say I am let's not call I'm a person who is involved with the group, and I am delivering my session from here. Okay, so this is the range. If this is where I'm delivering from, so if you see, I am high on content
Yeah.
and I'm very less on process. So what happens is my engagement may not be very high. I am giving a lot of, if I am here somewhere, the first one is I am completely with content and no engagement. So
Hmm.
I'm putting my neck on the block, but I'm not trying to put all teachers in that category. But if I remember, teachers, professors, typically, in a classroom, 70, 80 people, they're just talking. I had a professor who never looked at the students, kept on writing on the board. Okay. And we
Hmm.
used to have fun behind and all that. So content, and the person was a PhD. Okay. So it's not that the content person didn't know. The person was very, very highly educated, intelligent, knowledge high, um, came with knowledge and just kept on talking.
Hmm.
So when someone just gives you content, then the choice of the listener is to listen or not.
Hmm.
And I think we have all been students. We have learned the art of showing that we are listening without even listening. Right. So this is where we would say content. And now somewhere here is where your content is there and you're using engagement to build up some of the learnings, is where I would say a trainer is. So if
Hmm.
so you ask the differentiation between trainer, here
Yeah.
would be a lecturer, then you can have a speaker here. All these categories are here.
Hmm.
When someone operates from this side, so if, and we are working with groups, is what we call as group process facilitator.
Hmm.
Hmm?
So high on engagement and
Yeah. So you're
very
working with a
little on,
group.
yeah.
Absolutely. So you're working with the group is working. Somewhere here is where we can still call a facilitator,
Hmm.
and somewhere here is where I will call a facilitative trainer.
Hmm.
Now look at your question. You're saying what's the difference between a trainer
Yeah.
and a facilitator? So a CPF or a CPF master is certified at this level. Okay.
Wonderful. I think that
Uh,
that makes it so beautifully clear. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are certified here. That means if given a choice, if told, we can surely go into complete content less or content neutral. I could even draw
Hmm.
here. It's called content neutral facilitation. So you're not giving any content. Does it mean it's only fun then? No, money, that's not the point. It's about
Hmm.
the facilitator using various methods, processes, or tools to pull all the learnings from the group,
Hmm.
right?
So so you're focusing on harvesting what is already present as wisdom in the whole group, and you are kind of instrumental in getting it out in a way.
Yeah, and I think what you said makes a lot of sense. You said harvest. Yes, it's a harvest. If I also add in some bits of it, the first is the belief.
Hmm.
Do I believe that the group has the wisdom?
Wow. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think that
think
that's
about it.
that's that's
Now,
very deep. Yeah.
on the exact opposite side, a teacher, a faculty goes to a class with the belief that I am more knowledgeable than you. So my job is to teach you. So
Hmm.
I'm not saying it's wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I come, I'm a PhD, I need to teach the students. But what's the fault is that if we are not even facilitating some bit of conversations in the classroom and just going and assuming that everyone doesn't have the wisdom in today's
Hmm.
world with AI, internet, and all those things, I think we are living in a false world, right?
Yeah. So I'm just picking on two words, Ajit. You talked just now about belief, and I'm kind
Mm,
of translating it as trust, having trust in the group that they come with experience, their knowledge, and they have thoughts about it. And the other thing which you said very early, saying creating that safe space so that
true.
people can speak up. And I'm just thinking, are these two the pillars for a facilitator before even the process comes into play, creating that safety and having
Mm.
that trust? I mean, does that kind of make sense?
It makes sense. The only caveat there is in India, uh, and I would say Southeast Asia in some places,
Hmm.
we are. We are not stopped, but the LND typically doesn't allow us a lot of engagement before the session.
Okay.
You may
Hmm.
ask, and sometimes it's done, but it could
Hmm.
be, oh, I have to give email IDs of people. Okay,
Hmm.
I asked a client, I need, I require what are the basic qualifications and how long they have been staying. They've
Hmm.
been there in the company. So it takes a bit of time. They'd give it,
Yeah.
but it takes you to follow up and all that. So the engagement before to create a safe
Hmm.
space, which ideally would be good,
Hmm.
is not as much as an opportunity. Second is the culture part of it. So if you look at the culture, is how many people really read a pre-work document in
Hmm.
this side of the world? So if it's a training, everything is they would probably, while walking up the stairs to the venue, that's the when now though it's on a laptop. Earlier, these used to be. So we find rarely, even if you send these documents, very rarely, unless and until the client side has someone who follows up, checks with
Yeah.
them, because we as external consultants may not have their phone numbers, all those things, right? So the safety and trust, everything starts with my prep in the room, and
Hmm.
the moment the learner or the group member walks inside. Yeah,
So it's all happening in the moment, right? It's
absolutely.
just in that room, what you created.
Yeah,
And
it's not that you can't, because in Europe and
yeah.
other places, engagement can be done before, it gets done before. But I think one is the cultural bit, and the second is somewhere or the uncomfortableness about giving so much of
Hmm, hmm,
details on the clients, because sometimes people fear headhunting. All those things are there because we work with. I work with the senior managers and all that. So they
right.
do send it, but it will come 1 day, 2 days, and 1 day, 2 days advance. I send something, they're not
Hmm.
going to read it, neither see it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I'm drawing a parallel from this to, how leaders operate in an environment in a corporate scenario, right? You're handling
Hmm.
teams, new people, people joining from different teams, project teams. So you're constantly handling groups of people. You may be interacting very briefly before you actually start working with them.
Yep, yep,
Yeah, so
yep.
any thoughts on, how does a facilitator really bring in leadership then in case of a facilitated session? Like you are stepping into a room, you're kind of, people are looking up to you in a way, and you still have to hold space, stay neutral, like you said, manage
Yeah.
the process. What is the leadership component you bring in there?
Okay, as a facilitator, my leadership component starts with the two words you already picked up: is create
Hmm.
a psychological safe space. Trust gets built up. I'm empathizing because and earlier on we talked about belief, right? My
Yeah.
belief is that the wisdom is there in the room. That itself
Hmm.
is a very high leadership trait that we can think about. But I'll flip this question a bit.
Hmm.
Um, Today, what we believe, and I believe very strongly, is while there's major work that we are doing from the L&D side. So what happens is L&D, that's learning and development, engages us for training or facilitative training work, okay, or sometimes process facilitation work if there's a vision or something that needs to be derived from the group. um, but is the business directly engaging? Right, it's not.
Hmm.
It's the L&D means it's a function.
Hmm.
Ideal scenario, or let me not call it ideal scenario, a wish list kind of a scenario that we would really want, is that the business realizes that facilitation is not a training competency or a learning
Hmm.
competency, it is a leadership competency. And there
Hmm.
have been books which have been talking about it. There have been very enigmatic leaders who have been talking about facilitative leadership. They may
Yeah.
not use the word facilitation, they may use democratic, they may use laissez-faire, they may use involvement, but
Collaborative.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
collaborative. So there
Yeah.
is this whole bit of awareness that a leader needs to change. A leader needs to be more facile. And I'll go a little deeper there.
Hmm.
And I'll talk about this side of the world, okay? Because
Sure.
the rest all would be what I read and assumption of the other places in the world. Let's look at a learner.
Hmm.
A learner who is working in a corporate, as you said, corporate environment. What are his or her references of a learning environment? So I have a reference of a school first. School, highly autocratic. Most of the teachers, exceptional teachers will keep aside, but most of the teachers open the book, read. It's all based on rote method that we see, and it's all about replicating till the exams, and after the exams, people forget. So the teacher in the class is more worried about finishing the content, the subject, and all that, and maybe that's the whole system of education. Then you go to college, right? Your college also has the same scenario. There's a pedestal. The first thing you see in a college and a school is the huge pedestal, and the teacher stands on the pedestal. So already created that
Yeah.
difference that, oh, the other person is a person I have to look up to. It's so all these are all proxemics, right?
Hmm.
The moment a teacher comes in a class and a student is talking, the teacher shows authority.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
these are my references. So I go for a training. I'm a young person who has from campus, I've gone to corporate, and I go for a training. What is my expectation? Because for me, all the references, major references, have been command and control in the classroom.
I'll be told. what
I'll
to
be
do.
told.
Yeah.
So, first is, do people expect that there'll be facilitation? Absolutely not. The younger you are, the more, and you could be from the best of the college.
Hmm.
You could be IITN, you could be IIM and all that. Everywhere, that is the system that's going on. I mean, that's a so it's a what do you call it? It's a dynamic that happens in our brain as a learner, saying that if I go to a session, class, workshop, whatever you call it, I've been told by the LND. Sorry, I've been told in the induction program. There's an induction. Some seniors are coming and they're going to teach.
Yeah.
So I go there, and the first thing is I am molded to become a listener.
Hmm.
Now, exceptions to the rule. There are some students, even in classrooms, they would ask, they would be sent out. In college, they would be asked, they would be sent out. So they are in this, they may end up asking, right?
Hmm.
Now look at it. If the learner expects you to be in a command and control, the learner comes and is very compliant in the
Hmm.
beginning. So what happens, they'll come, sometimes they'll come and meet you, or they'll just sit there, they'll sit. It's so surprising, Mani, they don't even talk to themselves if they don't know each other than a few people who are extroverts. Introverts
Yeah.
typically would be sitting in the side, and wondering if there's a workbook you have given, they'll start looking at the workbook. But if I have traveled in different countries, I would find people come and interact, and they would be talking, and hi, I'm from so and so, and then you tell them to come in the seat, they would sit. But majorly, what I see in our side of the world is, people come very compliant. Other than if they're senior leaders, or then
Hmm.
they will
Hmm.
talk and they will. Now look at it. I have a group which is in that mold, and I am now using facilitation because I believe that the wisdom is there. So
Hmm.
what happens is, when I use a facilitation method or process, um, initially they still trust me because the organization has trusted me. But now what is happening, slowly I'm allowing them to say things, speak, and I
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
design. So people may still not speak. If 30 people are there, 20 people are there, you won't find an introvert suddenly saying something.
Hmm.
So in facilitation, we use a lot of small group conversations, or what we call as a divergence of a small group, or individual divergence, so that later on we
Hmm.
can converge it into a group kind of a wisdom or group learning. So the construct that I have to look at as a facilitator is, can I make it safe for them to speak? So if you see
Right.
the whole cluster seating that's there, the way
Hmm.
they sit
Yeah. Yeah.
itself. So you say, in the table, please discuss your expectations. Come up with the top two expectations on the table. Now what happens? They start, because it's comfortable. They'll say, hi, I'm
Hmm.
so and so. And I may add in something, introduce yourself, where you come from, and all that. So they are fine. Later on, I may change the group into a different construct, and the size of the group may change, all those things. Now my question was, leadership, and
Hmm.
leadership, and your question, and where I was leading to. Today what happens is, most of the leaders, okay, and managers, I think the day you get promoted, you feel that, because I have become a senior leader, I have to now use command and control, because that's a reference, that's happening in the house, that's happening in the school, that's happening outside. Political space is all command and control. Religious space is command and control. Only one baba gets talked about more than the others. You see, my whole environment is command and control, someone at the top whom I have to listen. So in leadership, the leader or the manager who gets appointed, the day he gets appointed a manager, as an individual contributor, the person would have a lot of cribs about the manager not speaking, spending time. But the day he or she becomes a manager, unfortunately, and I'm underlining unfortunately, wants to be a command and control person. I have to take action. Now you see the mindset change that is required. It's a paradigm shift, not even just a mindset change. You have to change your paradigm. So I'm a manager now. I'm handling my group, but before I tell you what to do, can I invite my team members to have their suggestions come in? Okay. Now, what
Hmm.
if the suggestions come in? They will be right, wrong, different. I will have to synthesize it into one way of moving forward, or two ways of moving forward. So I need to know certain tools. Now, the
Hmm.
problem that leaders face, because they don't know facilitation, they are worried that if I ask them, I will have 10 different opinions. right? Now,
Yeah.
from these 10 different opinions, how do I come up to one or two that we are actioning? So I
Hmm.
will have to put a lot of energy into, ultimately I'll say, listen, I am telling you this is what we'll do and we'll do. So when you
Hmm.
don't know the tools, you will end up using force.
Yeah.
So the leader, what the leader or manager does, avoids all this, you know, asking and all that. I am the boss. I am the boss of this team. This is what we need to do. This is what comes up to me.
Hmm.
And over a period of time, if there's a divergent view that comes up, I start silencing it knowingly or unknowingly. Knowingly, I'll silence it by saying, hey, listen, okay, I will tell you what is to be done. Unknowingly, I'll say, um, uh, we have done this before. Why?
Hmm.
Because for me, the worry is if more divergent thoughts come in, I don't know how to converge them into one, two, three steps to move forward.
Yeah. No, and I'm also seeing it from another perspective, Ajit. When you say this, there is an element of how safe does the leader themselves feel, right? Because if they are not feeling safe, any dissent is
See,
not allowed. And how capable are they are of inviting a dialogue.
yeah,
And then
true.
the paradigm shift which you are talking about is huge. I mean, and that's not going to happen overnight or even over a few months, because it's a much deeper shift in belief itself that
Yeah.
there is a possibility to get something. So how does I've seen your articles on this where you encourage leaders being facilitators, and that's the way of
Hmm. Hmm.
involving people. What do you see as a way for leaders to develop this capability as a facilitator, or even to get started there? Inviting
Yeah.
dialogue maybe.
See, to get started, it's a mindset shift. You have to work with the paradigm that with I think AI gives you a complete, clear understanding that if you don't, um, accept or invite, you are going to
Hmm.
perish. Because today the
Hmm.
youngsters are using AI, they have solutions much more elaborate, deeper than what I could have. Okay, so the whole concept that we have in a mind, I only have to decide, and even in the house, I'm the father, I'm the grandfather. All
Hmm.
this is changing. And I'm not just saying AI. The youngsters have a lot of opportunities with the devices and all that. They're exposed to a lot of different things
Hmm. Yeah.
compared to probably what I had when I was young. We had just a Doordarshan channel. Today a child has more than 100 channels plus a phone where he can or she can ask, and it will throw up some right answers, wrong answers, but the choices are coming up, right?
Hmm.
So with the reality that is there, I think the first thing we have to start believing, if I'm in organizational or anywhere as a leader or as a person who's the karta, I have to start believing that the child or the youngster or my junior individual contributor can have a perspective.
Hmm.
Okay, that's the first thing, my belief.
Yeah.
Second is, how do I invite? Right? So there will be extroverts who will, you don't require an invitation, they just need a, you just say and you take a pause, they will put in. But there are a lot of people who are ambiverts and introverts. How do I invite that their voice also stands high and we are listening to the voice? Okay, so that's the second layer. That means I need to, and it could be through questions, it
Yeah.
could be through various, now if you see, typically coaching has, it's driven with questions, the way I
Hmm.
understand it. In facilitation, I have various methods that will slowly make people speak without even
Hmm.
writing a question there, so I can just put a area, and or I can navigate to a particular place and people will start coming up with whatever they want. They may come up with their own questions for that matter.
Yeah.
So, a second is, I need to know facilitation tools, methods, or processes for inviting individual views, individuals to speak safely in small groups, and then the groups coming up. And then the third bit, as a facilitator, I need to know how to converge these thoughts into, because if we have a laundry list of ideas that come in,
Hmm.
we are going to get overwhelmed, right? So we need to come up with one, two, three actionable which the group has agreed. So let's say we are doing ideation. I get 20 ideas. None of them. People
Yeah.
get overwhelmed with it. So I need to come up with a synthesis, could be through voting or something. The top three that this group feels we should first go ahead and do it. And that could be a prototyping or piloting. um,
Yeah.
so if you ask me what's it, one is the mindset issue, which means we'll have to have leaders talking about why they need to facilitate conversations in organizations,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And remember earlier I was saying the business comes from the L&D, not from the leader. The leader needs to believe that I need to, second part is there, the leader or the manager needs to believe I need to learn these skills. I'm just calling it skills as a
yeah.
because don't have any. I'll say these tools, methods, or processes. But let's say I need to understand the skills of how to invite participation, how to synthesize the participation into actionables. Right
Mm,
now,
mm,
this needs to be learned.
yeah.
If I learn this, then I can be. So one is I need to be convinced that I need to be a facilitator in spite of me being a leader. Second is I need to
Mm,
know the tools of facilitation and engagement and building actionables, right? Ultimately it needs to be action. I think these are the
right.
two layers that need to be done.
I think there are ample opportunities as well to practice this, Ajit, right? To meetings, as most of the surveys say, a lot of time for any leader goes in meetings. And
Meetings.
I think these places are wonderful spaces for trying out facilitation, I would say, because that's where,
Yeah.
especially when you are leading a meeting, you have called one, or even when you're participating, how do you help and engage with others is what coming to mind. Something else which I wanted to touch upon when you talked about this whole journey as a facilitator and leader, how does it
Hmm.
change the individual? Like, how has it changed you as an individual when you have moved in this journey from, trainer to facilitator to CPFM? What do you see?
I think it's a very, 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 very. I would say it looks humorous. I'm laughing, but it's a very deep question that you're asking. I think one of the backgrounds I didn't mention is I come from. I did say my business family, right? I come from
Yeah.
business family. I've seen always my father in command and control. In those days, because we were handling illiterate and illiterate kind of work group, I have seen a lot of power dynamics with verbal, sometimes physical, and all that.
Hmm.
um, so I think the first shift when I started getting into the training journey, understanding is um, I had to move from my earlier references of command and control works.
Hmm.
Right. So in spite of school, college having command and control, and there was that fear psychosis created by as an Jesuit institution, you have your hair long, there's a you I mean there's so much of
Yeah.
fear created to create that command and control. Plus I saw it in the house. When I got aware of training, and my British Council, I think, is my catalyst moment where I thought, hey, so when I got into training, it changed me. While I was still giving gyan,
Hmm.
I had the patience to stop. Earlier, I had no patience. I used to tell. Hmm? From tell, I got into a balance. So if it's a balance, there's a tell and a seek on the other side. So earlier,
Yeah.
my tell side was very high. I mean, I used
Hmm.
to not bother about seeking. Then the second phase that happened when I started doing training and engaging training, building in activities. Because you run an activity or a game, you have to debrief it. Debrief means
Hmm.
they have to talk about what was their experience, what did they do, what didn't they do, and all that. So there, I think with training, my balance of seeking started. So I started. I'm
Hmm.
not saying 100% seek, but the balance started. So from zero seeking to say about 40-50% seeking is what, depending on the different module or session or the group I was running. When I moved into facilitation, and this is what I realized, um, my patience in the room is much more higher. So
Hmm.
earlier, when I was into training, I had to finish because that's what we had agreed with the client. So at
Yeah.
times when someone went and said, "Oh, I say, okay, fine, come on," it's getting irritated inside, saying, "Abhi aur kya bol rahe ho, yaar?
Move
Why,
on, move on, kind
why?
of. Yeah.
Come on, let's move on." Um, with facilitation, I have to keep on so I keep on reminding, and that builds a lot of patience. So I'm very
Hmm.
patient, I listen. That doesn't mean if the person is repeating something I'm going to listen to all that. I have ways and tactics or which I will use. So
Hmm.
I'll sometimes say, yeah, I'm. So is this point a little different from what has come up earlier? The person reflects, no, no, it's similar. Okay, fine. Is there any layer of difference? Because otherwise, what will happen? Say 20 people will say the
Yeah.
same thing, right? So I still need to move on, but I do it very patiently. I have tools.
Hmm.
Sometimes I may realize that everyone wants to speak. I would prefer to put them into small groups and come up with the first level of convergence. Then we can work with the larger level of convergence. Because
Hmm.
each person speaking, 20 people speaking 1 minute is 20 minutes. I still have time, no? I need to.
Right.
But on the other hand, I put them into small groups and make them speak. I could get the same thing coming up in, say, 8 to 9 minutes,
Hmm.
right? So I find I'm very mindful. So as a facilitator, I'm very mindful. Now I don't work always as a facilitator, so a lot of my training are training engagements. So I'm more of a facilitative trainer. So when I'm
Hmm.
doing facilitative training also, I know that this is what I have to cover, because the organization wants this to be taught for this group of people so that they can use it back into the workplace. So it's
Hmm.
not only reflection and all that. So
Yeah.
I am, as I showed earlier, I'm not completely on the right hand side when I take facilitation work. I'm more at the center, a little center right, in that box of content and process that I showed.
Hmm.
And that has made me very patient. It has made me much more patient in my home also. So I
Yeah.
think there's that shift, but it
Hmm.
starts working on you.
Hmm. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of inner work which you're talking about, right? And so
True.
I could catch three things which you talked about: more patience, being more mindful, and then you talked about that balance, what is needed, and how do you get that structure and flow together? Some part
Right.
of channeling, but some kind of flow as well. So beyond the process, Ajit, which we are talking about, process is a key factor here, right? When you're doing code facilitation, how do you use that as an enabler to create the transformation? Because you are talking, we talked at the beginning about it's not just people coming, training, or ho gaya. It's not that, right? You're
Hmm.
looking at it should remain with them. When they go
Hmm.
back to their work, some impact gets created. So how
True.
does that transformational part get taken
See,
care of?
I'll put it like that. If it's a process facilitation, okay, which we
Hmm.
are doing, pure process facilitation, extremely on the right hand side, I have to get to the agreed outcomes, agreed with the
Hmm.
sponsor, agreed with the group, agreed with my understanding of facilitation. So I'm not
Yeah.
so much tied up with impact. I'm
Hmm.
not worried about impact, because the impact will happen when they use it back into their workplace. For example,
Hmm.
let's say for a pharmaceutical company, you are creating a 3-year vision plan. Now, ideally, what the leader who has come from another company would have loved to do, he would have wanted to show his vision and say, this is what we are doing, because I have come here, I have to do.
Yeah.
But the organization is facilitative. The leader was coached probably, or talked that, otherwise they just come up with numbers, nah? That's the
Hmm.
easiest way. So we ran a visioning exercise and then breaking it up into key indicators, key drivers, and then how they would achieve year 1, year 2, year 3. Now this was all coming from the group.
Hmm.
So yeah, so what I was trying to say is that many a times you have to build it up from the start of the session, saying that this is why we are here, and we get the leader kickoff also to say that and we have a little bit of social contract or a agreement with the leader, that the leader speaks last, because if the
Hmm.
leader speaks first, everyone then navigates or goes to that side. So one
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
agreements is sometimes we ask the leader to step out also. Hmm?
Hmm.
And they do step out, they only come at certain points, because if you are saying that the whole vision needs to be done by the group, then if you say this is where we should be, then you're just using what we call as facilitation. It's a
Yeah. Just
manipulation,
mothering
right?
all the voices. Yeah.
Harm.
Yeah.
So one of the things that as a facilitator we have to, so when we talk about facilitative work, we'll have to be mindful of these elements. Okay,
Hmm.
is it facilitation? Is the person asking us to do it, but ultimately it is his or her agenda that's flowing down?
Hmm.
So for organization, it's not so much about impact when we talk about facilitation. It's all about actionable. Like with the
Yeah.
pharma company, we've done it for three teams. When I look back, 3 years back, we've done it with the HR team, we've done it with their business and all that. When I connect back and I say, how far have you moved? And they would say, oh, this is what we have been able to achieve and all that. That means it's getting action, right? So am I really the person who created an impact? I just
Hmm.
facilitated.
Yeah.
The work was theirs. The agreement. So we also do sometimes actionable agreements like a RASI matrix and all that. The action was theirs, and they have to follow up. I'm not going to do the follow up. I just,
Hmm.
if I bump into them, I may ask. So when we talk about process facilitation, it's about the outcome, and the running or the delivery or the making it a reality is all the group's work. The group has to do it, right? So
Hmm.
the agreement, so within that day or 2 days, when we discuss about the desired outcomes, we talk about that. The desired outcome is we come up with the action plan. Then a conversation with the leader is that, how are you going to see that this action plan gets action? Are you going
Hmm.
to, so a RASI
Yeah.
matrix or some kind of matrix is used, and they have names and response, so they track it internally. And many of these MNCs and good big companies have project management tools that they will use to track it. Now comes the training part of it. So your question comes in facilitative training. What is impact? Impact is, if I am, let's say, I'm doing a session on authentic communication, which I run for RPG and all that. The whole idea is that the manager or the people who are having internal appraisal conversations or feedback conversations do it authentically. Okay, and when authenticity said, again, balance of seek and tell and all that.
Right.
So we run a lot of skills practice in the room. There's a lot of skills practice. So what happens is, um, if I take a moment, simple, I first do something where I check your existing learning. Okay, I will run an
Hmm.
activity to find your existing understanding. So I call it a chat GPT model, but I'll not get into this. So I check their existing understanding. Then I heighten the awareness as a trainer of the new understanding or
Hmm.
additional understanding. So, for example, they do communication, but I have to get into authentic communication. So I'll heighten it. Now, when I
Hmm.
heighten it, it is possible that some people already knew it and some people didn't know about it. So you're heightening the awareness. After heightening the awareness, I need to check whether they have understood the learning or not.
Hmm.
Right? So I may have used slides or I may have used something, but happens now, people may not have understood. So same page, we are not on the same page. So I
Yeah.
need to run some test. That test could be in a role play format, it could be a quiz, it could be a simple questionnaire that's distributed, or a small table conversation about what they have understood and all that. Now the moment I listen to that, I know, okay, the understanding is good, understanding is not so good understanding. If I, otherwise I'll have to repeat it. Now if I know
Hmm.
the understanding is at the level which we wanted, then I move to the next phase. So remember, I checked the understanding, I went and heightened the awareness, I have tested, their understanding, whether they have understood or not. Now I will create actual learning environments, actual, sorry, business
Okay.
environments for them to practice. So
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
earlier role play was to test. So generally, we in testing, I would use limited role plays. But
Yeah.
if I'm using skills practice, this is the place I will use the skills practice. So I will create a
Hmm.
scenario which, so if it's a sales guy, I'll say you're dealing with one of your top distributors or your top channels. And the
Hmm.
distributor is very angry because there's a competing product, and we'll customize it to the reality of their world, and then we'll ask them to run it. And we don't do it as a role play in front of everyone. Therefore I called it skills practice, because that gets into embarrassment at times,
Yeah. Yeah.
where we do it in small groups. Again, that's a
Right.
facilitative group, and pull out the learnings. The last phase is, then I need to look at, if they, how are they going to action this learning back into the environment, which is action planning sheet.
Hmm.
So if you see, it's a cycle. So if I
Right.
design my module of facilitative training in that way, the facilitation comes. So where can I use facilitation? I can check their understanding by using a facilitative method or a process. Once heightened awareness is a content download or giving them, or a video, or a, this, then testing is more of, again, a check through the audience.
Hmm.
Practice. Okay, practice is where they practice. The skills practice part is where it's a complete facilitation, because they do it and we would just observe, or in the table the observers would give them feedback and would just, pick up the feedback and see if something needs to be brought into alignment. And the last comes to the rollout, or what we call as the actionable, is a commitment, right? They have to give a commitment. Now commitment I can't follow up and check. The commitment needs to be done by teams with their managers, so we'll encourage
Hmm.
them to have a conversation in the next week with their team members. So if you see,
Right.
in facilitation, the impact is not something which I'll worry. I'll work with the desired outcomes.
Yeah.
In facilitative training, the impact is not so much about what I taught. The impact for me is what did you practice and what you are now comfortable of using back as a deja vu. Say if
Hmm.
I've given you a very tough situation and you did a skills practice, now I can go and handle, the brain feels comfortable. So we
Right.
use this. We have stopped doing. Earlier people said training में मजा आना चाहिए. ढिंचैक होना चाहिए. No, we don't do that. So we're not
Hmm.
taking that kind of work. We say
Hmm.
sorry if the leader says नहीं अरे कुछ तो करो ना. I say but क्या मतलब,
What is
why
the
don't you get
purpose?
a
Why do we need it? I think that the question
हाँ,
of why a lot of people
abs-
don't ask. Yeah, it's get focused on let's do something kind of thing. Yeah.
हाँ,
Uh,
मेरे पास बजट है चलो तो then
Yeah.
get a game master and play games यार, why do you need us?
Yeah.
So I
No, but
told one,
I want to acknowledge that part, Ajit, which you said that, I don't know how much impact I created. That takes a lot of humility to say that. And it can only come from that space of, knowing that, things happen
"Hmm,
with you in space. So I
नहीं
just want
हुआ
to ask.
अभी, I was this client, I'll not name, they kept on saying we want fun, nothing else. I said
Uh,
I will give you at much more lower cost. I will give you a friend of mine who does amazing games and all that, no debriefs, kuch लेके नहीं, they'll have fun.
hmm,
And he said, no, but why are you not doing it? I said, I can do
hmm,
it, but I will end up being facilitative because now the DNA has shifted. So I will ask them two
hmm.
questions. और इनको खाली धमाल मस्ती करना था. So then
Yeah,
we
yeah,
gave them, they contracted with them at a much more. See, I'll go with what Tyagi says, Tyagarajan.
yeah.
He says something. He says I may not be saying it in the exact words he says it, but what I've understood is um, the game, the debrief is the reason why you have a game.
Hmm. Yeah, if it was
Yeah,
just
the game is
playing,
not the reason there. My
yeah, yeah.
debrief learning
Wow.
is the reason why I thought it was profound.
Very nice.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so my game could be 5 minutes. Debrief can be 1 hour.
Hmm. What comes out of it? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
and what
makes a
what
lot
do
of
they carry
sense.
back? Right.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing. Thanks so much for putting this, things together in terms of leadership, in terms of facilitation, how they merge and come together. And, I've seen you talking about this quite openly, but it was great to hear from you about this live. So what would you advise, people who want to become facilitators? Let's say, there could be, I'm just thinking from it, from the perspective of people who are graduating, let's say, and they see they
Yeah.
have skills to talk to people. They want to have those conversations. They want to be standing in front of people, helping them transform.
Hmm.
Multiple paths are available. Where do they need to get started?
I think the earlier model that I showed actually is a nice trajectory for new people to look at. If I go back again and
Hmm.
if I say, I would say start somewhere here as a speaker, right? You
Hmm.
will have to be a content expert and all that. Slowly move to a trainer, then move to a facilitative trainer, then go. So this itself can be a good trajectory, okay? In the sense, this is
Hmm.
how you can move forward. Is my opinion on it. Now, it is
Sure.
possible that someone directly gets into facilitation because that person's belief in group wisdom, looks at group processes is very high. So I'm not saying that it's a year on year cycle. There are
Yeah.
some people who so I met someone very young, probably just out of college, when in my TIS class.
Hmm.
And in our TIS classes also, they have to the assessment is on a facilitation on a given thing that they do. I found this person was amazing, and he worked in the NGO sector earlier,
Hmm.
and then he was doing his OD program, MAOD. And I thought he was very powerful as a facilitator, right? So for
Hmm.
him, the trajectory is not that you need to be a speaker, you need to be a trainer. his core is already, he typically invites people first to listen. It could be because of the upbringing, it could be because of the influences, it could be because of the place, I don't know. But I thought
Mm,
that person can directly get into facilitation. But if you talk
mm,
about someone who looks at it from a L&D space, then
yeah.
ideally we should start becoming trainers first, because
Mm,
that's where the bread and butter is. I'll get a
mm,
lot of practice there. So I start being a trainer. In my training, I need to introduce facilitation, which becomes facilitative training. So rather than going and just showing slides, can I blank a few of slides in between and run a activity or a method or something which will derive the learning, right?
mm,
That means my time elements will change a bit. Rather than a download, I am uploading, if I use the IT technical language. So you need to upload slowly. What you
mm,
do, your facilitation needs to be more and your content needs to be reduced, right? That's
mm,
a good way. Because for someone who loves to talk and
yeah.
loves his or her own voice, for them to be a facilitator is very tough. And
Mm,
there's one more problem, Money, which a lot of people therefore don't like facilitation. See, in a typical training program, when you finish, there will be at least 40% or 50% or lesser people will come and say, wow, I really enjoyed, thank you, great. They will clap and all those things happen, so you get a high. It's
mm,
like a drama performance. Sometimes if the drama performance doesn't get claps, they worry. So you are used to that adulation, so trainer gets used to that high.
mm,
In process facilitation, now this is exactly opposite, and I'm talking about something I did for a very big large MNC here, ages back in Bangalore. They finished, they just left.
mm,
We got what we did. Only the vice president, who was my sponsor, and the L&D partner who was there, they waited. Everyone left because they had a cricket match, they had lunch, and then a cricket match and all that. So my worry at first point was no one stopped and said.
mm,
But then that's the day I realized so many years back that a facilitator, if he or she does great work, is actually invisible because the group did the work. I just hosted the
yeah.
space
Yeah.
for them to have conversations and all that. They do the major work.
Mm,
And the VP was so happy, that there were some things he would also have to do as part of the agreement. The L&D partner was happy. So while the client is happy, we got the work, everything was done the way we wanted. um, from a personal side, you don't get that someone coming and saying it. You go for lunch, probably
mm,
no one even recognizes you, as a concept. I mean, in
yeah.
training they
Yeah.
will, oh sir, come here and all that. Now a lot of people get very uncomfortable with that. So I think
Mm,
my first shift when I did first process facilitation was this. I
mm,
had to let go of the ego in me of that adulation, and people say, and that's very tough for people.
mm. And I'm
Now,
sure, I'm just kind of hazarding a guess here, Ajit. I'm sure these people would, at some point later, would realize, like you realize those catalysts. They would realize that something changed when I attended that session. I'm kind of sure about it.
I know I've seen some posts that come from
Yeah.
some of the people who attended after 3 months, then say this, made me think and all that. They
Hmm.
sometimes remember the name and they acknowledge. Sometimes they may not, but we know that that is what.
Yeah.
So facilitation doesn't get you the tom tom and the spotlight. Yeah.
Right.
And therefore, if you see a facilitator doesn't, so dressing wise, I'll just add in one or two layers. When you said people, so typically training is power dressing. You're
Hmm.
advised, like, wear a jacket, wear a tie, look good. Your presence is very important. In process facilitation, you diffuse.
Hmm.
You don't even stand on the pedestal. As it is now, I don't stand on the pedestal, I stand down. You are one of them, so you will
Right.
dress as if them. So you're not someone who is at a positional power that you need to. So for a lot of people, that becomes also a big shift.
Hmm.
So I work with a international training company, and There was facilitation work, and my other colleagues all dressed in a blazer and all that, and I am in a nice simple shirt with the jeans and all that. They said, "Hey, how can?" I said, "Hold on, that's your perception of how a trainer should look like, right?" the And probably the audience also gets that, they expect you to be like this and all that, but slowly
Hmm.
they and possibly that's one of the reasons the psychological safety and the acceptance of the facilitator becomes very fast. Even your
Hmm.
attire, your mannerisms. I had seen Tom, who's an Australian facilitator. He is very short, not like unlike typical Australian stall, but he walks with a slouch or jhola. You'll see him as an old man walking in very simple attire, outshirt. Once he starts, because he's looking so, like us, the
Like
way,
us, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like us, i am I feel free to talk to you. I
Hmm.
don't intellectualize my conversation, but if I see you very powerfully attired, I have to intellectual my thoughts na. I have to intellectualize my question to you so that it sounds
Yeah,
very
yeah.
very knowledgeable.
Right.
um, so a lot of my colleagues in the training world, while they use facilitation processes, they get very uncomfortable. So I've seen some facilitators wearing suits and trying to get, because then the adulation and all that. So for them
Hmm.
it's a journey. Now if
Hmm.
culturally we are all used to, I was doing it in a hotel group, they all were in formal attire, right? In
Hmm.
a hotel they were blazers. So naturally, I knew that I had carried my blazer, and fine, so you be as at par with
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
then it
yeah.
works well.
I am kind of reminded of this thing from from the coaching space. Bill Campbell, who is considered to be a great coach, he's written this book, $1 Trillion Coach. He says one thing: if a client says to you as a coach that you did a great job in a session, that's the worst thing you would want to hear. So I was thinking of it when you said the facilitator is invisible. It's
Right.
like it gets done. Wonderful,
Mm.
great. Thanks so much for sharing that insight, Ajit. So I just kind of want to wrap this up with what is one thing you may want to um, invite leaders to do to step into, like you talked about paradigm shift and that ability
Mm.
to, but is there something which you would say, some inner habit you think they should develop, or one thing which they can use to move into that facilitation space as a leader?
It's a cliche, so I'll use it, but it's a very powerful thing if we understand exactly doing it. A leader can, for today's generation, can walk many steps. I think it's listening.
Hmm.
Listen, and that's where comes with seek, which I talked earlier. The tell and seek balance. Um, you need to seek and you need to listen.
Hmm.
So two words. If that you start doing at a DNA level, that means it becomes your default drive. Um, for you to move into facilitation is very natural,
Hmm.
and in fact, people will always remember you as a leader who heard. Hmm?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Wow,
think
great.
that's that
I
one
think that
thing.
that's what
Seek
people
and
want,
listen.
right? Yeah, they want to be heard and seen, as we say, and I think that that makes a lot of sense. So listen deeply, and you can end up asking better questions also.
True, true.
Great, Ajit. Thank you so much for this
Hey,
wonderful
thank you, thank
conversation.
you,
Yeah.
thank you. Chalo then.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Yeah, bye.